All right, everybody. Welcome to Hat Tuesday number 7. Hat Tuesday number 7. As you can probably tell, I'm not at home. All right. Um, I'll just kind of just preface this by saying that I don't have I'm in Newark, New Jersey right now. I'm in a hotel room on a hotel Wi-Fi. So I have no idea how this is coming across, right? I don't plan to have an extra long show. I actually have a kind of a lunch engagement. Uh, but I got my first guest that just arrived. I'm going to see if I can bring them on here so they got Robert Galt. Let's see if I can get Robert on here. They will need to connect their mic before you can add them. Okay. Robert, if you're hearing this, it looks like StreamYard wants you to connect your microphone before we bring you on stage. So I will allow you to do that. And then, we'll see if we have any other guests that arrive. But the reason why I had the show to begin with, right? It kind of is a little bit different, right? This is kind of our first topical. All right. So we got Paul here. Paul, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. You?
I'm doing well. I got Robert Galt that's going to join us for a little bit.
Oh, wow.
I think, Robert, if you are hearing this, I just want to reiterate that I believe you just need to connect your microphone to be able to kind of join in because I'm not able to add you otherwise, kind of like I just added Paul. We'll just wait for Robert to get his microphone connected, and then we'll add him to the stage. Paul, how you doing, my friend?
Yeah, all right, thank you. Yeah, I've been pretty busy with the family over the weekend, so
Yeah.
that's good, and also a few sort of hat things and what have you. So I've when Ian and I were in London, we went to
Yeah.
a shop called Bates and Co, and
Yeah.
it's by Hilditch and Key. It's the sort of men's outfitters that now own and look after Bates and Co hats. And one of the things I said to Ian was that a long time ago I bought an antelope fur felt hat. Now I'd never seen it anywhere else, and
Yeah.
it was a beautiful brown, beautiful hat it was. And I saw, like everything, when you're trading in hats and you're making hats, there's always going to be a hat that you'll find that you wish you'd never sold.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was one of them. Well, I've got a box behind me here, which it says Bates and Co. And
Right.
I managed to pick one up, and thought I'd just share with you because I'd never really seen an antelope fur felt hat before, and I guess many of the people that watch your channel probably haven't as well. Now I haven't. This is a brand new hat with which has never been worn basically, but I think it's been stuck in a box in this box on somebody's wardrobe or something for a few years, and
Right.
it's a beautiful soft antelope fur, and it's got a wind cord on there. You can just see the little dimple there, which is elasticated, and then inside you can probably see it's still got the Bates label in it, and if you can see this little thing at the top here, that's actually a little hook to be able to hook your hat up on a little hook on a wall. So can you see it? It's pulled out now.
Yeah. That should be standard issue. Shouldn't it? Right?
There we go. And I mean, isn't that great? Isn't that great? As a very, very subtle sort of addition. It makes me wonder about cutting a couple of holes in with a hole punch. Good morning. And actually adding that to my sweatbands because it's such a good idea. And again, can you see this white on the black?
Yes.
Yeah, that allows you to pull in with the bow. You can undo the bow.
Yeah.
You can pull in the sides of the sweatband and adjust it by a few mils so that you can get a better fit on the hat. Wonderful idea and way of making hats from many years ago.
Yeah, it just seems like that's the way it should be, meaning that, right? So, and this is why, again, one of the many reasons I love you, Paul, is that you're still, you know what I mean? Like you're still out there, like, whereas, some hatters, in my opinion, might like rest on their laurels, right? It's kind of like, okay, I got my style out there, I got my customer base, and I don't know when, right? It's kind of like that idea between when one stops exploring, right? And then we got Nettie. Nettie, good morning.
Good
How are
morning.
you? Welcome. It's kind of like that idea when, the idea between planning and doing, right? But it doesn't mean that one has to stop to the other, right? So like Paul, you obviously have already an established style. We got Robert is going to try to join us again. I don't know what, let me see if I can help Robert here at all. Robert, if you're listening to this, it really doesn't want to let you in without your mic. And I don't know why. Again, I'm going to just claim ignorance here, that it could be me that's preventing you. Yeah, Josh just says, I'm making hat clamps for my hats as a free gift to its way to hold hats on a bag for storage. Yeah, you see, these are the things that I love, right? Again, I'm not a hatter, but I love the fact that Josh, Paul, Robert, if we can get Robert on here, I can see him. Robert, I see you, but it won't let me add you to the stage until apparently, I guess it says they will need to connect their mic/cam before you can add them to the stream. Okay, so apparently StreamYard says that Robert doesn't have either a mic or cam connected. So I'm sure Robert will figure it out and we'll add him because, I was really like, I added, just out of all fairness, I'm going to take the blame on this because essentially instead of doing, the planful thing, which is to add Robert and invite him yesterday, right? I essentially invited Robert literally 5 minutes before the show started. This was just poor planning on my part, right? So it's kind of like poor planning on my part does not constitute an emergency on the part of Robert. I'm just thrilled that he's trying to make an attempt to get on the show because I really, first of all, Paul, like I know that you said that you really wish you could make that show. So it was kind of like, in many ways, my nice little surprise that I was trying to do for Paul in particular. No problem. Like I said, and then also the fact is, I really enjoyed Robert's appearance. Hey, we got Ian. Ian, how you doing, my friend? Ian has just joined us. I will try to keep. Look, I love this. Nettie is greeting Josh. I will try to keep a little bit of interference here to see if we can get Robert in on this because, first of all, this was kind of a combined inspiration for today. That this was something that Josh mentioned yesterday during our kind of a group chat. That hey, this would be a great idea for the show because as of yesterday, I didn't even know if I was going to do this show because one, I'm on hotel Wi-Fi. So hopefully this is coming across okay. I was able to bring my camera. That was the nice benefit of buying the camera that I did is that I had this idea in mind that, okay, maybe I can take this camera and my wireless microphone, right? So my Hollyland microphone, wireless microphone. So if you like the way I sound, I get no money from this, just like I get no money from anything other than my job and, and whatever I find in between the couches. This is just like, this product has been great for me. And I have to thank just other YouTubers for reviewing this. This is the Hollyland M2 microphone. So it's a lapel type microphone. And I feel like if you've seen the progression here between my early episodes and in my later episodes, well, I have to kind of say that that's wireless microphone is part of it. But I am at the mercy of, the hotel Wi-Fi as well as my setup here. I am usually on a desktop. I brought my Linux laptop. So shout out to anybody that one, if you know what Linux is, and two, if you happen to use it, it's just when Microsoft decided to sunset Windows 10, I decided, you know what? I'm gonna be ready. I am not gonna buy Windows. I'm not gonna buy a new machine just so I can do Windows 11. But I do know a lot of folks that do that. I said, okay, you know, and this was years ago. Honestly, I've been running Linux for quite a little bit. You know, but even before my hat journey, so to speak. So I was kind of prepared for this. So now that Windows 10 is officially sunsetted, I've said, okay, I have lots of laptops that cannot run Windows 10, at least not natively, right? There's ways to do it, to run Windows 11, that is. But I chose, hey, I'm going to run Linux because I'm quite comfortable in it now. So anyway, I'll just digress. We haven't got Robert in here. So what we'll do is maybe we'll start without Robert, only because I kind of have a hard stop, right? This will be a short stop. So let me just see. Josh has a comment here. If you travel, get a travel router to protect your devices on that hotel Wi-Fi. Hey, that's good advice. You know, the nice thing is, and again, I don't want to propagate ignorance. The nice thing about running Linux is that a lot of the traditional means, right, to breaking into devices that, right, so Windows, right, we still know that 90% of the folks out there run Windows. Maybe another 5% or so run Apple, right, Mac OS. And then the rest run some version of Linux, probably. You know, and then a lot more people run Android, right? Android basically is Linux, right? And if you didn't know that, now you know. Android, because Linux is open source. If you have an Android phone like I do, you run Linux and you don't even know it, or maybe you do know it, right? So I just want to make sure, you know, I talk about that. But yeah, thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. Josh is an IT person, so I respect his opinion. So, you know, again, hopefully I didn't say anything misstep, but Josh, feel free to correct me because I do know that this is your area. Josh says, trust me, you don't want to connect to hotel Wi-Fi. I believe you. I trust you, Josh. Trust me. Trust me that I trust you. So yeah, listen to Josh before you listen to me for your tech advice. Or maybe a lot of people other than myself. I'm not even a junior tech. But yeah, Nettie says, there's an option to get Windows 10 support for an additional year when you run your update. Yeah, I'm aware of that. I kind of I know that exists. I was just looking for an excuse to keep running Linux. You know, I do run Windows 11. Don't get me wrong, on my desktop. So I have kind of a. For those who want to know a little bit more about me, the technology person, I am somebody that inherits machines, right, including operating systems from other people, right? Somehow, some way, I've been fortunate to inherit a lot of laptops, a couple desktops, all for free, because, well, when people upgrade, they're like, oh, you want this? Luke probably wants it, so yes, I'll take it. And that's how I get a lot of my machinery. So Nettie goes, oh, okay, LOL. And then says, no problem. Yeah. So I'm just somebody that really like, it's kind of like in many ways akin to like Robert, right? And a lot of folks that, Robert, and I'm really what I meant was Paul, right? Paul started off restoring hats before he got into hat making. And I think a lot of folks had that trajectory because there's something about reviving or giving new life into something that somebody else said, well, this is done, right? So I feel like I am doing that, even though I'm not a hat restorer. I kind of use Linux to give new life into machines, right? Into computers that otherwise somebody said, you know what, this is too old for me. And when I run Linux, I just say, they're like, well, you still using that machine? I say, yeah, I run Linux on it, right? And if you're interested in knowing what kind of Linux I run something called OpenSUSE, right? It is a German company. I believe they're German, and they are kind of one of the companies that are in business, but they also right, SUSE, that is. OpenSUSE is kind of the open source version of SUSE, and I'm sure there's a German acronym, but I won't even say it because I'm going to butcher it. But yeah, I know this has nothing to do with hatting, but this is kind of just my day. Paul, how's it going? I mean, everything good on the hat front or life front?
Well, some people would have thought we'd actually rehearsed this, but of course we haven't. You mentioned about breathing new life into old hats, and you can probably see this this hat here, which is a straw hat. And over the last week or two, I bought an old Panama, and this is made by Herbert Johnson, which is the people that make the Raiders of the Lost Ark hats. So they're a British-based company owned by Swain Aidney Brigg, and this was a standard Panama with a big brim. And so what I've done is I thought I'm gonna try something here and see if I can actually repurpose an old traditional Panama and bring it up to a little bit more stylish, if you like, in the way that I like the style. And it's very difficult to buy a Panama hat that's like a fedora with a reasonable sized brim and a nice big trim on it. And so it's the sort of outcome, if you like. So I've still got the ridge down the top, which is a sort of tribute to it originally being a Panama. I managed to keep that in there, and then giving it quite a high crown. In fact, let's have a look, see if I can get a ruler on it, because it's quite a high crown. It's yes, 12.5 centimeter crown and a 8 centimeter brim. So it's just over 3¼ inches in terms of its brim.
It's gorgeous.
Size.
It's absolutely gorgeous.
So this is a hat that really somebody was going to throw it away, and they put it up on eBay through a charity shop. So they obviously donated to a charity shop. I bought it for not a lot of money, and I spent a few hours taking off in fact, I've still got the ribbons. Originally it had a white inside sweatband with a black trim around the brim, and it's a very narrow trim, as you can probably see. It's a 25 millimeter. So I've given it a 50 millimeter, and brought it back to, if you can think about the Riviera and the sort of continental style, this is the sort of thing that I think they would have worn. And it's I've just put a leather sweatband in there, because traditionally you'd have a cloth one, but for me the leather is much more comfortable fits, and when your head does start perspiring, it's a lot easier to take the hat off and just wipe it around and hold it for a few moments and then put the hat back on. But with a lovely wide brim, it gives you a pretty good thanks, Ian. This was done with a conversation that Ian and I had, and about Ian perhaps next year wanting a bit of a straw hat, and I thought, well, with Ian's like for high brims and things, I'm going to try this and see if I can make it happen. And I think I made it happen. I think that's pretty okay. I think somebody would say
that is fantastic.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's I just wanted to share it with you so you can see it's recycling from something that somebody was going to throw away to somebody that now will value, and it may give it a few more years life as a useful hat. I'll tell you one thing that did happen though, was that they had been using their fingers, and they'd actually worn away some of the straw, and so I've reinforced it with glue. So you put some glue on the folds in here, and you build up layers of glue, and it gives it much more of a rigidity, There you go. Josh is saying he also wants to work on one, and it's I've actually put some shellac on this to give it a bit more stiffness in the brim as well, which again I was sort of concerned about, because clearly straw's got lots of holes in it. So the shellac sort of sits on there and goes through, and also shellac can be a sort of a yellowy color. Is that going to turn the straw a different color? And it didn't. It worked fine. So if you've got any thoughts on that, Josh, don't worry about it. It should be okay. And
anyway, Ian is giving his vote of confidence, and I happen to agree 110% that you are the hatter to do this. I mean, again, it's one of those things where this is okay, and again, I'm gonna just be me, which is Paul is the type of hatter you want to give your money to, right? Because you know what I mean. And again, I'm gonna try to not be too long on or verbose. but everybody wants a hatter like Paul, right? Because Paul is not, he's not resting on his laurels, right? You can already see here, he's thinking about the next step, right? So like for myself, I'm like, I have 2 iterations of PJ Murphy and Son hats. Now I'm getting really excited about trying to get myself the next one, right? It's kind of like, if you see Paul now and the gorgeous hats that he makes, you're just like, imagine Paul in 2 years from now. Matter of fact, imagine Paul even just 1 year from now, right? And that collector itch is kind of like, wow, this is Paul, this is PJ Murphy and Son 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, all the way out to, well, until PJ Murphy and Son, right? It's kind of like until there is no Paul, right? And then still PJ Murphy and Son may still be around, but that's the beauty of it. Or maybe it doesn't, right? Like I said, nobody knows, right? Just like nobody knows their expiration date, nobody knows, but in this moment in time, Paul, right, we're seeing in real time his journey and his process, and that's why people invest in other people, in ideas, in things, in everything, right? It's kind of like you just want to be part of this, and I think that's beautiful, you know.
It's very much appreciated, and great that you feel that way, because when you start off your journey, and I'm sure Josh would support me on this, you don't know where it's going to end up, and you don't know whether we all have days where we wish we hadn't started that project of that particular hat. It just doesn't go right. But in the early stages, what I was doing is I was buying 2 felts of the same felt to do a customer's one hat, because if it went wrong, I had a backup. Whereas now I've got all these backups that I didn't need, and but it's things like that, you and where I think you do like to pay attention to detail, and you do do your best. But one of the challenges I've got at the moment is that when I sew on my sweatbands, they're sewed on through the ditch, in the ditch, as it were, and of course that's a lot lower down the crown, whereas the ASM machines, they stitch them up further up. Now what that does, it means that you've got to be very careful with the ribbon that you cover up the stitches, and that's easier said than done, to be fair, because when you put the ribbon on, what I always do is give it a steaming, because that then brings the ribbon in right nicely and tight against the felt itself. So but I can't get an ASM machine, which is the 11071, I think it is the reference number in the UK, and I'm really sure, and they're about £5,000. What's that? About $6,000. So it's quite an investment. So I have to put up with what I've got, because nobody else can seem to sell me anything that's better.
Understood.
It's a real challenge,
Yeah. So we got Josh with good to know. I got my own shellac mixture, so I was worried.
I think we were talking about it going on the straws, but that works fine. I mean, I'm only learning on the straws as I go along. I haven't really. I've made 2 or 3 straws, but we don't get that much good weather over here. And in fact, if you've got a light felt, then to be frank, that covers most of the year over here. It's we don't get the sort of cold extremes and the hot extremes that you get in America.
And then Josh adds, yes, I have one olive felt that is cracking at the edge, and it was making me mad until I cut the brim down.
Well, I've just done that for a customer, and people get worried about changing a hat. When they've gone out and they've bought a hat, there can be some concern that maybe it doesn't suit them and they want it changed. Well, you can. You're not married to a hat, so to speak. I mean, I look at several of hats on my my collection, and the ones that I favor. Every now and again, when I get a new sweatband or I get some new trim or I get something, I want to upgrade them, so that when I'm walking around wearing a hat and somebody says, "Oh, where'd you get that from?" you can take it off and show it to them and share them. I'm proud of it, and if it hasn't got the latest bits and pieces on, then it's not doing me proud, as it were.
Right.
So we're forever changing things.
Yeah, yeah. And then Josh adds, now the olive felt is not pouncing evenly, so I'm going to down lower to a lower grit to build the hair back and moving up to a finer grit. Yeah, I'm fascinated by that. Like, this is basically magic to me. The idea of what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
I
Well,
love
the
it.
pouncing thing it's really interesting, actually. Look, this sounds really Anorakish, as we say in the UK. It sounds very detailed, but you can get this is a hat I've got which I really like, and it's a long hair
Yeah.
Western felt, weight felt, about 250 grams, I think, and it's about 50-50 beaver and rabbit, but it's a long hair, and of course, I spent about an hour and 10 minutes pouncing it, but just very slowly and nicely to get the fibers to go round in the same direction, and it just looks like I sit here some evenings and I just play with the hat because the felt and the material is just so nice. I've never
That's gorgeous.
seen
That's just gorgeous. I mean,
I put a thick binding on the top and small on the top and flipped it over and then sewed it underneath. But it's a winter hat for me for this year, and it's the pouncing side of it is quite interesting to use the different grades of grit. And I think what I'd say to you, Josh, and I'm not an expert at this really, I just try it, is just give it time. Just just take your time and just be confident with the strokes, etc., and consistent with it, and you'll get there. But I do see some people using electric machines to do the pouncing. These sanders, and I've got one, but I started using it. I thought, you don't really feel like the traditional. I love doing things with traditional equipment and in the traditional way, and I think the traditional way for me was probably by doing it by hand and just feeling the way you go, and that's what I prefer. But anyway, that's pouncing for you. It's lovely. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned one of the key words, Paul. So because you again, I think that's one of the many reasons why I love having you on the show. First of all, thank you, Nettie. I believe Nettie, this is the first time I've seen you join us. So welcome. First of all, there are no just as a reiteration here. If you've seen my show and just haven't participated, that's fine. There's no wrong way to be a participant on the show. Just like there's very few wrong ways to do hatting, right? So we have two hatters here. Robert, FYI, this is my own fault because I invited him 5 minutes before the show started. He decided to give up, but he might be watching. Robert, my apologies, my friend. I already apologized, but I will apologize again. This was my own fault. I kind of set Robert up here to fail. But I feel like Robert is going to see this maybe in syndication, or if he's watching now, and he's going to opine. If you know Robert, like I know Robert so far, he's going to opine, and I love it, right? So welcome, Nettie. We got a comment here by Josh. So I say, I tried an electric sander and it felt off. Went back to hand sanding and it felt better, like it was right.
There you go. Yeah.
Again, and I think Robert touched on this as well, right? I believe the last time Robert was here, he talked about technique, right? In terms of cupping. I'm probably like butchering this, but I believe Josh and Robert were interacting about like how you hold I guess the sandpaper in your hand, and I believe Robert mentioned cupping. And I just somebody that, again, I'm not very well schooled on sanding, but the idea of the cupping just the visual got in my head, and I can't forget it.
Yeah.
But so again, keeping us on task here. So even though we won't have Robert here, Robert did inspire this. He inspired Josh to, and Josh went in because Josh is part of my board of directors, and he said, well, "Hey, Luke, why not do a show on this idea of," right? So we've already touched upon it because Robert mentioned it. he put kind of that idea out there. It's something that we kind of intuitively knew, but I felt like, okay, for myself, I feel like Paul and Robert really represent that traditional classic fedora, right? Like I believe you gentlemen would classify yourself as being more of the traditional side. But Robert mentioned this, right? And we have Josh here, which I feel like Josh and somebody like Nick Fouquet, right? We right, somebody very well respected, right? And I probably Nick Fouquet is one of those folks that really represents that artistic side. And I think Josh is also getting to that right. And there's nothing telling you that you have to kind of stick to one style or the other, right? You may have a foundation, or maybe you intend for your hats, your product, to be more in line with one or the other, but it doesn't mean you can't straddle both worlds, right? I believe there's a gentleman, I think his last name is Palacios. He is the gentleman that runs Worth and Worth. And I believe they're based in New York City. I believe Worth and Worth has been around since the 1920s as a brand. But the gentleman, his last name is Palacios. I apologize for not remembering his first name. But he is somebody I feel that really straddles both, right? Kind of like the Nick Fouquet and the, I'm going to say Graham Thompson, maybe Art Fawcett. Sorry, did I get Thompson? The Optimal gentleman. My name, I'm having a kind of a senior moment here, a little pre-senior moment. No offense to seniors. But, you know, Optimo, right? Art Fawcett, Robert Galt, now Paul John Murphy. These are more the traditional, right? But you can see that you guys also in many ways straddle, right? Because you guys are all trying to create something that is respectful to the traditional view, right? Right, but you're also finding your way only because your customers. You guys are so good at responding to your customer base, and I love it because I think there's a hybridization that's going to be inherently found when the traditional meets the festival, right, or artistic world. And you guys already seen, right? We had a show, our very own last Hat Tuesday episode was featuring one of the ebony and ivory hat that Paul created. Very much classic lines on that hat, but because the felt, right? The felt underwent right? It's kind of how it came to Paul. Paul said, hey, I'm still going to use this, right? So I think that is something that already sees it. Paul kind of showed his refusal, right? To let this felt go to waste. Paul's like, okay, this is not something I would put out there as something that meets my quality level, but I'm going to describe it to the best degree possible, what I found wrong with the felt, right? I could have never noticed it. It was a pinhole. Like, Paul would have to like really put it up to the camera for me to see it. But I also, as somebody that, again, I don't fashion myself an artist. I don't fashion myself, you know what I mean? Anything, right? I love art, but I know less about art than I know about a lot of things. I happen to be somebody that loves Salvador Dali, but I'm not even a Salvador Dali expert. So I wanted to, take it a step further and say, okay, that pinhole exists. I don't want to hide it, right? It would have been really easy to hide. Paul could have said, okay, and nobody probably would have ever noticed it. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to celebrate that pinhole because, well, Paul may never, ever come across another pinhole just like that one in that circumstance. I wanted to make sure that now I'm going to celebrate that. We're going to do it together. And I don't know. I just love that hat in many ways, right? That hat, it was my first PJ Murphy and Son hat that I profiled here, because right now for me, it's even better than the orange one in my mind, only because of that pinhole and because of the process that me and Paul underwent to create that hat. And I feel like the folks that, right, the folks that are really into that festival hat, the artistic side of the hat making, they're gonna know right away, man, I love that. The folks that are a little bit more traditional, right? Like they're probably even more traditional than let's say Paul here. They're gonna be like, that's just a hat with a pinhole that you decided to cut. You know what I mean? Like I know what I am, and I know, right? I know people a little bit better. Sometimes that I'll even admit because I know what they're thinking. I'm like, that would have been that. They're like, Luke, that hat would have been perfect if you had the right felt. And I'm like, no, the hat's perfect because it did have this felt. This felt happened to be the right felt for me, right? It's like Paul knew somebody's gonna love this, right? He put it up on his website. Somebody's gonna love this hat for what it is, and I'm gonna go and see if they want it. I have this price point because it was a lot lower priced. Like there were so many things, right? We talk about the levers that one pulls, and that hat pulled so many levers for me that I knew that I was gonna have. It was destined to be in my possession. Anyway, I'm gonna shut up right now. Paul, what do you think?
I'm going to say that you bring up a couple of good points there. And one of the things that I'm seeing in the UK is that even the traditionalists like Lock & Co, that is, one of the longest establishing hat companies the longest established hat company in the world, is going more towards bridging the gap between the old and the new. And I think for me, the reason I make things like this, for instance, as a festival hat type of thing, is really because it's a showcase piece. It's to show people that people like myself can do all of these sort of, whether you call them festival hats or whatever you call it, but they're all in the various colors and then they're fun and what have you. But it shows people that are looking to have something made, because a lot of people they want to see that you're capable of making shapes and sizes and then they want to commission you to make something that's particular to their taste or requirement. And I think that there are also a lot of people in the UK, the horsey set. I know you have the horsey set in America, but in the UK, again, it's this sort of festival come Australian hat, the Akubra, very, very popular in the UK. There's tens of thousands of them sold each year, I'm sure. And and once you've tried an Akubra, and I know you haven't owned one yet. I've got your Style Master. Sorry,
I have a Style Master.
Yeah, but you've got to get a traditional Akubra in the brown color, and really, honestly, those hats are to die for because they're just so different to everything else. That the felt, the fit, the fact they've got holes in to breathe, they don't have a lining, all those things, and they just they age well with use and with dust and dirt and everything else. But anyway, getting back to the traditional thing and the festival hats and things, I think it's good that hatters are given a canvas, if you like, with a website to be able to post up pictures of lots of different things that they do. They won't be the taste of most people. What they're really doing is they're showcasing the fact that they can do the work and then actually produce something that is more near to what the customer wants. But what's interesting is that once you start to build up a rapport with the customer, and then you get inside of their tastes and their style, if you get their trust, they'll then allow you to be a little bit more suggestive with perhaps the color of the felt or the trim or the size of the brim, and together you go on this journey of helping that person actually express themselves more freely than perhaps they've ever done before. And that's a really interesting thing psychologically, I think, for me, because even if I go back 2 years ago, I would have felt very self-conscious about wearing a hat in public, whereas now I feel I can't go out without a hat, and it's a great switch. And I think we need to see more and more of that and encourage more and more of that, because then people will see the benefits of having something over their head, especially when they've got challenging lack of hair on their head like myself, and the sun damage that I've got is reasonably serious, I guess, that I have to wear a hat. So why not embrace it rather than just let it. So for me, the festival hats are great, but I just don't know that they're, as you get older, I'm not sure they're our style, for us older. I'd much rather wear a Stetson Open Road, or one of my versions of the Stetson Open Road,
Yeah.
And actually with the brim down, with a cattleman crown, I think
Yeah.
that looks really quite classic, to be fair.
Yeah, and you bring up, okay, so so inherent in this discussion, first of all, you already, when you use the term psychological, I can't help but, you know what I mean, because we, you know, and again, it just happens, right? So as we go interact and Paul gets to know me a little bit better, I get to know Paul a little bit better, you know, it's gonna happen, right? And Robert, and that, again, that's, I really wish Robert was here, only because, well, first of all, because I know Paul really, but Robert already told me next time, you know. So just FYI, it's gonna happen. Robert's gonna be here because Robert fits in well, way too well not to be here. What meaning? Assuming his time allows it, right? But what was I getting at? The juxtaposition. So one of the things inherent in this discussion is the regionality of all of this, right? So right, a lot of the research that I did, right. So this, remember, this happened literally, I think, I want to say last night, right? Because I've been in my little bubble here in scenic Newark, New Jersey, and I say that people that know the area, they're like, scenic? What are you talking about, Luke? You know what I mean? Newark is not for everybody, and I'm sure the UK, you guys have something very similar to Newark or an analogy, but I won't go because I don't know. But those that maybe have been to both will be like, oh yeah, Newark is like such and such in the UK. So anyway, I won't belabor that point, but the idea is that there's a regionality here, right, within the US, right, of the traditional, right, a lot more of the urban areas, New York, Boston, Chicago, and a lot of the other centers akin to those folks that are the foundation of the traditional classic fedora look, right? That Paul probably would ascribe to. That certainly, I'm going to just say Optimo because I don't want to keep mentioning the wrong name, but I feel it's like Grant Thompson. Did I get that right? I don't know. Anyway, Optimo, Art Fawcett, and then Robert Galt. You guys really represent that. And again, with Paul, I don't want to pigeonhole you because Paul, before I even go into this, you know that when I went, you know how I always use ChatGPT classified you as somebody that really represents a hybrid or even the artistic side, which I thought was really interesting. Again, I feel like that has to do with a lot of my postings on Fedora Lounge. So Fedora Lounge maybe saw, ChatGPT maybe saw my post on the Fedora Lounge, said, oh, PJ Murphy and Son is more of the artistic side. I'm like, well, I wouldn't necessarily go that far. Although, again, I feel like the Ebony and Ivory very much is a piece of art. But Paul, I for myself, in my own opinion, is more representing that classic fedora look. Now, somebody like Nick Fouquet, Josh, I feel Josh, Brian Forbes, the Ebola hats person. I'm going to just say Ebola hats person because that was somebody that when I mentioned Brian Forbes, Robert mentioned Ebola hats. So you want to look up somebody that makes hats very similar to the style of Brian. Again, I don't know if they know each other, but Ebola hats on Instagram, very interesting hats. I feel like he is kind of like the UK version of Brian, right? Brian's out in LA in the West Coast. Ebola, I believe, is in the UK, but I can't remember where in the UK. Maybe I want to say Sheffield, but I could be wrong. And very, very similar styles. Like I feel like if they don't know each other, they should know each other. So Brian, if you don't know Ebola, look him up, and I'm sure Brian does because Brian, I think, is one of those folks that he keeps tabs, right? Shout out to Brian. Yeah, Paul is very much like that as well. So is Robert. He wants to know everybody because, again, even if it's not my style, right? Like myself with the Panama hats, I don't. Again, I have one cheap Panama, but the hat that Paul just showed us is gorgeous. Like there's no, for me, there's no. Now I kind of want to own that. You know what I mean? It's like Paul makes it so that I want to own a straw hat. And I'm going to go back onto something that Paul mentioned is the leather band, regardless of the leather sweatband, regardless of one feels about the function of it, aesthetically for somebody like myself, I think it just looks better. Even if it's served right as the same right, it's like there was no inherent functional benefit. I think it just looks better, to be honest. That's just my personal opinion. There's nothing to me that looks sharper than a really nice, I want to go and even go a step further, a brown sweatband on a Panama or in a felt hat or any hat. A brown sweatband to me, to Luke, already makes the hat look that much better. And part of me is probably like that vintage hat nerd in me, right? Because the idea is that brown sweatband, even though this hat, I'll take this one off. Sorry for my hair, but you see that brown sweatband, even though this is well worn, I feel like it classes up. Well, first of all, this is a blue felt. This is everybody knows this hat. It's my Knox Tom and Jerry. There's a thing about, and I'll put this back on. You see, I didn't even touch the crown once. I'll just give myself a little bit of an okay. Thank you, Paul. So yeah, the brown and blue, but brown and black, white and brown. Like I haven't seen a brown sweatband on a hat that didn't look sharp. A brown leather sweatband. Again, not everybody uses a leather sweatband. Brian doesn't use leather. Again, I'm waiting to ask Brian one day, and maybe I'll do it in the chat. Brian, could you share? Because my personal guess is that Brian Forbes doesn't use a leather sweatband because, well, maybe Brian comes from a more millinery, right? Instead of the men's hat making school that Robert mentioned, right? Robert, his first course that he took was from a milliner. So he went out, right? She taught fedora making, but Robert mentioned in his show, in our show, in the show that we did with Robert, that Robert's first class, hat making class, was taught by a milliner, and she teaches fedora making, but Robert didn't make that class. So I think that because of those schools, and I think that's also tied into this discussion, and I'll get into that in a second, but I want to make sure that I talk about, I got some of the comments here. Dark Soul Knight, welcome back. I did remember you from the last show, mention a hat is a companion, agreed 100%. Josh mentions, yes, a hat is a buddy, right? Remember, when you travel, right, my hat is a part of me that travels where I go now, right? So it's, you know how people have those emotional support pet, right? Your emotional support animal, or their blankie, right? Everybody kind of knows about the blanket. You watched Peanuts, right? It's like, I believe it's Linus that had the blanket. Hat is a piece of very comforting material that one carries with oneself, where nobody's too old not to need a piece of comfort, right? We have comfort food. We have also comfort possessions. Hats also serve that role. I'm comfortable in this hat. So even though I'm in a new surrounding, right, I may go and I choose to travel to, let's say, the UK or to Portugal or to Germany, someplace I haven't been to before. But when I bring this hat, I have a piece of me and I know that it's going to bring me comfort. So I feel like it serves so many functions. Let's see. Josh says, where I'm at in Alabama, it's Western style and an outdoor style hats, right? And that's kind of like, you can already see here that Josh is coming from Alabama, the South. We had that discussion, right? I live in Virginia. Even though it's Northern Virginia, it's still Virginia, south of the Mason-Dixon. So I feel like I kind of straddle both those worlds. I'm from the Northeast, so I have kind of access, but I'm a hat person that started becoming a hat person in Virginia, right? Technically, I became a hat person on my trip to Croatia. So right now you're seeing a regionality in the discussion here, right? Southwest and West, right? The West and the Southwest, the West, Southwest, and the South of the U.S. versus the Northeast, right? And the Midwest. So if you know the U.S. and how it breaks out, I feel like those are like, if you were to draw a geographic boundary about where the Western style and the more traditional style kind of meet, right? And I actually have a graphic, right? I have ChatGPT draw up a graphic. I won't do that now. I won't share it because I don't want to I don't want to take like we're almost up to an hour already, and I have a lunch date that I need to kind of make sure that I keep. So I will just leave it at that. I will share that, and maybe I'll create a post on my YouTube channel, and I'll share that graphic so that way you can see. But even if you don't know about the U.S., I will tell you that what Paul just mentioned, right? The Australian look, right? I feel like Australia represents that Western look, right? That more rustic look, whereas somebody like the UK, right? The UK in terms of like let's just say London. London is more like the tradition, right? The traditional view. So, and they respect each other. I feel like if somebody comes in to to London wearing an Aussie hat, right? An akubra, right? A traditional akubra hat that's in the fawn color that Paul mentioned, right? The traditional akubra. They're not going to look out. Maybe they'll look out of place, but they will not going to get like hat people will know. Hey, that's an akubra. They're going to respect. They're going to respect the style, right? That's why I feel like somebody from the South that's like a Josh type of hatter could go over to Australia, not look out of place. He can still go to the UK, right? To London, and maybe not look out of place. Maybe he looks a little out of place, but they'll be like, okay, I know that style. It's a rustic style, and right because if you're a hat person, you may not dig all the styles. You may not dig Panamas. You may not dig the pork pie, right? I love the pork pie hat, but you're like, no, sorry. I wouldn't be caught dead in a pork pie. That's cool. As long as you don't you don't go and poo-poo somebody else that wears a pork pie that maybe they wore a pork pie because they love jazz music. Maybe they love the pork pie because they really admire Buster Keaton. Maybe they wear a pork pie because they love Gene Hackman in The French Connection. Or maybe they love the pork pie because, well, they love Breaking Bad and really love Heisenberg, right? Like, there's no wrong way to do it. The only wrong way is if you go and you look at a pork pie and now say, okay, you're one of those, right? You know what I'm talking about. You're one of those folks. No, you're not a hat person. When you start doing that, that's when you start first of all, you start pissing me off. And then, you know what I mean? And then now I'm going to be like, well, now you put me in a position where now I have to go defend the pork pie. And I have to defend, right? Not because for myself, I do it because I have to defend this for the other people that, well, they probably wouldn't wear a hat if it wasn't a pork pie. They wouldn't wear a hat, right, in Miami if it wasn't a Panama hat. Because if you're from Miami, you're like, well, why would I wear a felt hat in Miami? Like, that sounds like torture to me, right? So it's like I have to defend it, even if I'm not somebody that, right? I wear a pork pie, I have one straw hat, but I have to defend it, right? It's kind of like free speech here in the U.S., right? It's like I may not agree with what you're using, right? What you're saying with your free speech, but I will defend your ability to say it, right? I believe Thomas Jefferson said that, but I could be wrong, right? I may not agree with what this gentleman says or this person says, but I will defend to the death their right to say it. That's just the way I'm built. So let me just make sure. It's like Dark Soul Knight says lots of bucket hats here in Wales. Oh, okay. Whoa. Shout out to Wales, right? Man, I love like I've not been to Wales, Dark Soul. But first of all, I love flat caps, right? Right. I got this Hukel recently. You may have seen this on Facebook. This black Hukel, right? And again, the great thing about flat caps, right, is that they travel really well. So, right, I got my knockaround hat, my Knox Tom and Jerry. I got my Hukel, right, this felt flat cap, and then I have this hat here that everybody's seen, right? I kind of posted this. This is kind of like no matter what the weather. This is like my version of like, how do I travel easy with this hat where I don't care what the weather is? I can throw this hat on, this kind of newsboy style hat, and still have a hat on my head. I have some covering, and I think it also looks sharp, right? The newsboy hat. Again, there's no wrong way to do hats, right? Again, even for people that don't wear hats, right? I feel like part of the evolution away from hats is when hairstyles, when people started having access again, we talked about the automobile, we talked about Kennedy, right? But one thing that we kind of only in the surface level alluded to is that, well, let's talk about Kennedy, right? I mentioned this before. Kennedy is somebody that had his hairstyle. He groomed himself with product, right? His hair was his hat, right? If you're somebody that, right, like I said, I'm not follically challenged. Paul said that, you know, by his own admission that he's follically challenged. I could, right? Yeah, there you go. You see, before, right? If you go into my LinkedIn account, right? You may not, you won't see it on my Facebook, but originally in my Facebook, you had my hair. But if you go on my LinkedIn account, you will see my hair and how I groomed my hair, right? It was before I wore hats. I groomed my hair in a certain style, kind of very much like this. I had a part on my hair. I still kind of do. It's kind of my natural part. And then I had kind of a more like a bouffant, right? A bouffant style hairdo, which, you know, a lot of people now associate with maybe Elvis, maybe Johnny Cash, also Kim Jong-il, or you know, the gentleman in North Korea, right? Like the bouffant style like means different things to different people, but in many ways it's a way to wear something on your head and style a certain way without wearing a hat. I don't begrudge it. I respect it. I'm like, you see somebody, you know, when you see somebody wearing their hat, their hairstyle, a mohawk, a faux hawk, I don't know, all the different hairstyles that one could wear, right? The hippie movement with the long hair. Those are all headwear, but they're done so with the original felt, which is our hair, right? Maybe before even hats existed, people had hair, and they maybe wanted, right? When we had aspects or we had access and the means to go in and product and style our hair. We had hairdressers and barbers. Now we could wear our hair in a way that expresses our individuality. And that is, I think, one of the distinctions between the traditional and the artistic style of hat wear is the idea of, okay, expression, individuality and expression, right? I'm going to signal, right? I mention this word all the time. I'm going to signal to the world what I'm about, or what I want you to think I'm about, with how I do my hair, how I wear my hat, right? Remember we talked about this, right? The Frank Sinatra. When I got my right, I call this my Frank Sinatra, but maybe it has a different term. I call it the Frank Sinatra because, well, Frank Sinatra is an icon, and he had the hat. Right, this is my Frank Sinatra style hat. He wore his hat right in the back, right, his trilby, and well, it was iconic. He made that look iconic. So regardless of where it came from, he wore his hat that way. And for me, when I saw that trilby, that straw trilby in Croatia, I wore it like that because I'm like, that's my Frank Sinatra, right? And now I have this hat, and I don't wear it like that. I have the brim up, but that's kind of the evolution of Luke the hat wearer. Doesn't matter if I want to. If I want to go outside right now, I can go and wear it Frank Sinatra style, and I'm still going to be comfortable. But signaling is one of those things, right? And we do it both ways, right? With the classic look, we're signaling to the world we love the hats, the high crown. We love the traditional fedora. We love that style, that throwback style. That is foundation. That the foundation is in the more urban areas. People like Josh, like Nick Fouquet, and like Brian Forbes, like the Yogola hats gentleman, and like countless of others, they're signaling too, but they're signaling that, hey, I can respect your style, right? Brian Forbes can make a traditional fedora. We've seen it, right? We've seen it, but he chooses to go and use his talent in hat making to create something that's a little bit more artsy, a little bit more colorful, right? A little bit more non-traditional, but he respects both of it, right? Like he has an interpretation. Somebody like myself, somebody like Paul doesn't make Brian Forbes hats. If he wanted to, he could, right? Assuming that his source allows him to, right? Like we talked about, like the burnt orange, right? Like that orange ribbon. That was the only one that Paul had access to, so he scooped it up. But if he wants more of it, well, now he has to go and reach out to his source, right, and say, listen, I need more of that. Hopefully Paul has that problem. Hopefully you guys see my Mets fedora and I'll feature it at some point. Like I'll probably feature it more on my Mets channel. But right, the Nets are gone, but the New York Knicks are playing, right? They played the other night, or yesterday, right? AKA yesterday. I don't even know if they won. I was gonna go to the game, but I don't have my Mets fedora on me, my Knicks Mets fedora. But now the Giants, my New York Giants are playing, and they are not blue and orange; they're blue and white. So shout out to the Giants, shout out to the Knicks, shout out to the Mets. I love all you guys. But anyway, I'm going to stop on that point. But yeah. What I'm saying mainly here is the reason why this show existed and it was natural was because, well, I love hats in general. I don't care if it's not a hat that I don't wear. I love the fact that people out there want to wear hats. Even if they don't want to wear hats, they want to style their hair a certain way, kind of like it's their version of the hats. There's no wrong way to do headwear. Let me just shut up for a second here. And Josh says, I hope to see bucket hats fading out and seeing more wide brim fell. Okay, now I will disagree. I don't want to see it fade out, right? Because I don't wear bucket hats, right? I don't wear trucker hats. I don't wear baseball hats. My son does, but in my kind of weird mind, I want to see people wearing hats like the ones they want to wear now, but I want to see them open themselves up, right? To where now, like somebody like Paul or Ian, right? They're like, hey, that snowflake hat, Luke, right? Like Ian mentioned, not my style, but I dig it. Meaning, I dig the fact that you like it, Luke. I dig the fact that Brian wants to make hats like that. Like I said, I feel like I have hats that represent all the traditions, right? Right. Paul's, the PJ Murphy, I got, and that Akubra, a little bit more of the high crown, but I don't have a hat with a higher crown right? If it's just high crown, we know that's not the end all and be all, because my Brownton Abbey, right? My Brian Forbes hat, that hat, you can't get a higher crown than that hat, at least that I own, right? Like you guys saw that hat, right? That's the hat that's it's very divisive, and it's not about high crown because, well, I don't know. I haven't seen too many hats with a higher crown than Brian Forbes' hats. They exist. I know they exist, right? Because the steam pipe hats, right? The top hats that Lincoln wore and that we saw in Gangs of New York for Bill the Butcher, right? Those hats are even higher, right? So at some point there's like some kind of like asymptote, right? To put it in mathematical terms, we're going to asymptote on crown height unless we're going to start doing skyscraper hats. I don't know. Somebody's going to do it. Anyway, so that's kind of my view. Josh adds, bucket hats are everywhere in Korea during the summer. Yes, I know bucket hats because, again, I grew up in New York, right? The bucket hat was something that I saw a lot in New York, right? LL Cool J, the rapper, is somebody that would wear a Kangol bucket hat, right? Like I call it the Gilligan hat, right? You know the Gilligan's bucket hat, right? From Gilligan's Island. Did I get that right? I think I got it right. But when Kangol, right? We talked about Kangol, the brand. When Kangol, right? I had that conversation with Steve Heck. Shout out to Steve. I hope, don't be a stranger, Steve. We want you back. But Steve Heck talked about Kangol, and I had this kinship with him because I come from Kangol from like the hip hop aspect in New York. LL Cool J was somebody that made the Kangol, the Kangol bucket hat, really well known amongst hip hop, the urban crowd in New York. And well, he wore it so well, right? LL Cool J was somebody that was like, man, what couldn't that guy do, right? So first of all, he had the physique of a bodybuilder, right? Like anybody that knows LL Cool J is like, okay, right? It's like watching an urban James Bond. If you watch LL Cool J, people that know what I'm talking about. If you are a fan of somebody like 50 Cent, 50 Cent is a rapper that like, I just wanted to be as cool as LL Cool J because LL Cool J was he was a ladies' man, right? Very much like James Bond, right? The LL stands for ladies love, right? LL is ladies love Cool J, which is James, his name. So that's how you came with the name LL Cool J, right? So it's like, who doesn't want to be a ladies' man, right? If you're a guy like myself that doesn't look like a ladies' man, never, right? You're like, okay, that guy is an urban James Bond, right? Shout out to LL Cool J because he's still doing it. And, for him, he's the greatest, right? And I feel like he's not wrong. But the people that know LL Cool J know why he's so important for for people like myself that grew up in an urban environment. And right, so I had a dad growing up, right? I talk about my dad, I married my dad. It doesn't mean that I didn't look at somebody like LL Cool J, right? My dad wasn't out there rapping. He wasn't out there. My dad was a strong man, but he wasn't a bodybuilder, right? And neither was LL Cool J. He just was a guy that was physically fit, obviously had women adoring him, right? And you grow up with these as a young kid growing up in Brooklyn, you're like, oh man, that guy he's got it all. He's got money, he's got jewelry, he's got it all. Like he's an artist, right? Like regardless of how you feel about rap music, it is a musical art form. So like for someone like myself, a young Luke, I'm looking at somebody like Cool J and I'm like, man. And then he wore a bucket hat. That was like his signature hat, like early L Cool J. Later on, he would wear like baseball caps. Sometimes he wore a visor. He always had a hat. He's a hat guy. Like if you know L Cool J, he's a hat guy, but he's not wearing a fedora, right? He's older than me, but he hasn't got just maybe in 5 years or whenever L Cool J decides, maybe he will go and maybe he'll watch this video, right? Maybe L Cool J like, oh man, I didn't like the fedora until I saw Luke or Paul or John Paul, Paul John Murphy, and I saw him on Luke's channel, or I saw Passion for Hats, and I want one of those. And not just that, I'm gonna make sure that the whole world, because right, so it's like just like I'm doing my little platform here, and I'm trying to make sure that the world knows about PJ Murphy and Son, and he knows about Robert Galt and Wolf Bray, and knows about Josh, right, the Hatter, and knows about Brian Forbes, the Hatter. Right, I'm going to try to use my little platform here to give whatever boost to somebody like Paul, to somebody like Josh, to somebody like Robert, to somebody like Brian, and all the other hatters that choose to spend their time with me. Because again, I'm touched that anybody really wants to spend time with me. It's the most valuable thing you can do. If anything you want to take from this channel is that money is one thing, right? And again, you guys know how I feel about money. The most valuable resource you will ever have is your time. Right? There's no price, right? If you go and you talk to Warren Buffett right now, and Warren Buffett's probably worth $50 billion, he would use probably all of it if he could buy himself 20, 30 more years. And again, I'm speaking out of turn. I don't know Warren Buffett. You know what I mean? Like, I wish I did. I wish I could go Warren Buffett on this channel. I mean, I would be honored. But anybody that is on this earth, right? I talked to my dad. My dad's 86 years old. My dad says, listen, he has a little bit of dementia, but he says, son, and he tells me in Spanish, he doesn't say son, he says hijo, or he'll say, mijo. He'll be like in Spanish, in his kind of country mumbled Spanish, and he'll tell me, he's like, hey, if I could go and live 5 more years, I want to do it. Not because I'm like too selfish. I'm a little selfish, right? I want to just see what you guys are doing. If your son, if your son has a son, I want to see him and grow up, right? I want him to know his granddad, his great granddad, right? If my son has a son, hopefully that son would be old enough to, and maybe in 5 years, if he ever had a son, he would see his great granddad. He's like, that's all I want is to see my great grandchild or my great grandchildren know their great grandfather, because, well, you guys know my story. I never got to meet my real grandfather, right? The guy I knew as my grandfather was somebody that raised my mom, right? On my mom's side, but it wasn't even my mom's real dad, right? So who I called abuelo and who I called, I respected growing up wasn't even my blood grandfather. And I feel like that probably is relatable to a lot of people, right? Not everybody got to know, right? Robert, who was on the show, his father passed away, I believe, when Robert was 10 years old, right? So by his own admission, Robert grew up with his sisters, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, and with his mom. So his mom is now, without never having met Robert's mom, gets a lot of respect from me, because I know if Robert's mom had to go and raise Robert as well as Robert's siblings, she had to be both dad and mom to those kids, right? That's just the way, right? It's like when somebody loses one of their senses, they will go and the other senses get heightened, right? Right? Somebody that goes up without hearing, now then maybe they'll have more visual acuity. Maybe they'll use their sense of touch, right? We saw that in the movie Ray with Ray Charles. Anyway, I'm going a little bit verbose here. I don't mean to, but I do, because it's just me. But yeah, back to the kind of the topic at hand is there's no wrong way to do this. And we're not done with this topic, right? We may be done, right? As like we're about an hour and 13 minutes, and I don't know what we really accomplished here other than having an episode under our belt. I'm gonna, before I go, because I feel like what I'm gonna do is, maybe for Hat Tuesday number 8, I'm going to reintroduce this topic, maybe in my brain right now, and I'll leave it up to my board of directors here, right? If Luke forgets to invite Robert Galt on again, maybe you guys will be like, hey, Robert, maybe I'll just add Robert to the board of directors group chat, right? Like, he can always take himself out if he chooses to, but I'll add him to the group chat. That way, when I send out a link, Robert will have that. He will already have the benefits of my rantings, for better or worse, right? You guys that are in that group chat, I appreciate you guys for lots of reasons, but one of which is that you guys have really you guys have allowed me to be myself. So thank you for letting me be myself. I believe that's a song, but I don't remember who sang it. But I appreciate it. You guys really always let me be myself, and obviously I let you guys be yourselves, because, well, why wouldn't I? I love you guys the way you are. So thank you guys. Paul, before I even move forward, any kind of like last minute?
One thing, and it was like probably almost 30 minutes ago, you were mentioning about the different hats and the different, we'd spoken about the hierarchy of hats. Wouldn't it be interesting if we came up with something that, do you remember when they do the evolution of man, and you've got the various animals that come up to the caveman and then to Homo sapien and all that? Well, if we did the same thing, we mapped the hats under the men. And so you had, because I remember when I was a child and going to school, my first hat really was a cowboy hat, and played with other children with that. But then going to school, I had a more formal cap to wear. In the UK, we used to wear caps, and then from caps it went on to other hats, and there is an evolution, and what we're seeing is the bucket hat and the baseball cap, they've all got a place in that evolution. And what we've really done is we've stuttered on how we get people from where they've got to in that evolution of going through. And a lot of people, including myself up until a few years ago, we're still wearing baseball caps in their 50s, 60s, with appropriate clothing, of course, but hadn't gone to the more formal side of looking at the benefits of the different hats. And I think that just people just need to perhaps be mindful. They can open their minds up. It is quite an acceptable thing to do, and actually a very fun thing to do. But I think there's a journey that people go on. It's your hat journey, and it's like the evolution of your life. It's the evolution of your hat life. Anyway,
that sounds like the makings of Hat Tuesday number 8. So as long as and obviously the nice thing is that I'm not in this by myself. Paul mentioned it, so now it's top of mind. It's top of mind for myself. So right now, without obviously I always reserve the right to pivot. But right now, I believe the topic of the next Hat Tuesday will be the evolution of headwear. Right. Now, again, it doesn't mean that we're going to be the end all and be all. Right. Like, we can always pick up this discussion. Right. I will use this as always, a straw person. Right. I won't even say straw man. I'll say the straw person for the next discussion will be the evolution of headwear, because I have opinions that I don't think I've shared. Right. Obviously, I mentioned that I'm a big fan of MMA, mixed martial arts. Right. The UFC. In the UFC right now, a lot of fighters are coming in from the regions of Russia, Chechnya, Georgia, and Dagestan. and I'm sure I'm forgetting some countries, but those 3 countries, there's a lot of great fighters, and a lot of them share very, very similar headwear, right? If you guys are fans of the UFC, you know what I'm talking about. Right? And obviously, if I could get somebody like Khabib Nurmagomedov here, or Merab Dvalishvili here, or any one of those gentlemen, that I really admire, because I think there's, right? So if you know a little bit about the island of Puerto Rico, you guys know pugilism, right? The idea of boxing, right? My boxing opened up, right? I used to watch boxing with my father, because there were a lot of great boxers that came from the small island of Puerto Rico. And, there was that little bit of a rivalry between Puerto Rico and Mexico that still exists. And they're still, they capitalize on that, even though, shout out to Mexico. I love Puerto Rico, don't get me wrong, but Mexico, we're not really doing that great. But again, it doesn't matter, right? Like, I love the sport of boxing. I am a big fan of a lot of Mexican fighters, a lot of Puerto Rican fighters, and all fighters in between, right? Like, it doesn't matter, right? In the UK, you have Tyson Fury, and a lot of great pugilists. I'm a big fan of all of them, right? There's a very nationalism aspect to pugilism, and the UFC and MMA is no different. So I will, if it works into this, right? Because I know the idea of tribalism, right, and headwear for the sake of, hey, this is the tribe that I represent. We have this headwear because when we go to war, we're gonna wear this headwear so that when I, right, when like Bill the Butcher would say, when I slay you, I want you, right? And again, this sounds a little weird, but like the idea is you're gonna know who slayed you, right? Because I may be the last person you see right before you go and you reach the other side, right? To use it to say, like, this might be what Bill the Butcher would say, right? Right before he ends your life. And there's a reason why that resonates, because, well, that may be a little artsy, and a little bit dramatical and a little bit theatrical, but, well, I like theater, right? So there's a reason, right? We talked about, like, the importance of villains, and theatrical villains nonetheless, right? Like, I don't, I'm a big fan of theatrical villains more than true villains, right? So Bill the Butcher, Bane, we talked about that, but maybe that will be a juxtaposition to the next show, right? But before we get to Hat Tuesday number 8, what I want to put out there is that and you guys in my inner circle already know this, that that my plan right now is to go live, right, on Thursday morning. I don't know what time, right? Because Hat Chat, right? Hat Chat number 28, if that so happens on Thursday, right? I don't know. Right now, the plan is to have a Hat Chat on Thursday where I go live over at Bancraft Hatters in Brooklyn, New York. Shout out to Bancraft, Steve Goldstein at Bancraft Hatters. He's a Facebook friend. He has opened up his shop. As far as as of right now, he's opened up his shop for me to go and bring my laptop, bring my setup, and go live from Bancraft Hatters. Morgan Brown, our one of our faithful moderators, hopefully will be there with me. Again, I don't want to speak for her. I don't know if she has intentions on being on the show via video. She's offered up her hotspot, thank goodness, because again, I don't know, right? Like right now, my phone, I don't even have data. Like, my data will reset when it resets. I've been in New Jersey without even a data connection. I've been on the mercy of Wi-Fi. So right now, even if I wanted to, I couldn't connect I couldn't do a hotspot with my own phone. Morgan said that she will offer up her hotspot in case that Steve at Braincraft doesn't have a Wi-Fi. I don't know what's going to happen. It may not even work out. But right now, you guys will find out, like you find out for a lot of things, right? Hat Tuesday will be on Tuesday, unless I mention otherwise. Fedora Friday will be on Fedora on Friday, usually at 11 a.m. Eastern. Hat Chat number 28, I believe we're up to. If that's correct, if Hat Chat number 28 will be on Thursday over at Steve Goldstein's hat shop over at Bancraft, in Brooklyn, New York. And I look forward to catching you guys. You know what I mean? Like I said, if you guys, I will try to post the time when I have it available to me. And I hope that you guys can join me. So that's all I got. I'm gonna hopefully make it to lunch on time. Paul, any other parting shots before we let go here?
No, we're all good, thank you. No, great show. Thanks very much. Really enjoyable, and look forward to your next one.
That sounds good. So you guys already know what happens here, right? So you guys, I want you guys to support Paul over at Passion for Hats. I want you to support Paul over at PJ Murphy and Son, right? Go, you've seen his website. I mean, he's on here all the time. So I don't have the banner right now, but you guys know his information. If you don't, well, hit me up and I'll get you his information. Paul is a blessing to the hat community, as is Josh, as is Robert Galt, as is Brian Forbes, and any other hatters out there, right? I believe, like myself, they're doing they're doing us a favor by sharing their knowledge, and especially on a small channel like this. So what I want you to do is support him. If you want to support me too, right? So hit me up with a subscribe. I think we're up to 52 subscribers. I'm trying to get to 100 so I can give away that hat that's still right now back home in Virginia. It's not with me now, so I can't show you. But I'm gonna give away that hat. So we got Dark Soul Knight saying goodbye. We got we got Ian saying ta-ta. We have or Toodle Pip, right? And then we got Josh saying have a great day. And we got same to you, my friend. So what I'm gonna say is you can do all that if you want to, right? You can support us, you can not support us, you can choose to be vocal on our channel if you could not. But one thing you have to do, you could do a favor to Paul, myself, and anybody else, or we'll get Bill the Butcher after you, right? Not to slay you, but just to hit that, that subscribe button for you. And also to tell you, stay hatting, my friend. Have a great day. Ciao, everybody.